Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Goblin Slayer Episode 4. When we last left our heroes, if we can call them that, an elf, a dwarf, and a lizard person came by unnamed guild and unnamed city because no one in this world has a name, but that's a whole other rant. Um, to enlist Goblin Slayer in taking out some goblins that had aligned with the Demon King in like a place nearby. And then they went to the place and they killed the guards and they went in. That was last week's episode. There was some, bonding time, but besides that, uh, we also got a continuation of really the one genuinely great thing about this show, and that is the world's origin story of, of the gods like playing D&D for the world, and we found out unfortunately they eventually got bored of that and then created the world to like fight, and sometimes the good gods would win, sometimes the bad gods would win. This is still the best part of this show, but it's far worse for not being a giant D&D campaign. Or maybe the entire thing, just the whole like world they created was just their D&D campaign brought to life. That's my current theory. Alright. So, before we go any further, I should offer a warning. There will be discussions of rape throughout the video, just because this is Goblin Slayer, and it loves its depictions of rape. But yeah, just as a word of warning, get prepped for that, or don't watch the video. It's your choice. Anyway, where was I? So, when they go in, Goblin Slayer reveals that the whole we need to like mask our scent thing that he brought back way back in episode 1 apparently only applies to women, children, and elves. Which sounds super fake. Children don't smell that different from men, or male children shouldn't smell that different from men. It's a whole other debate, the difference between masculine and feminine scents. And elves, I don't know, the whole thing felt like it, like, especially the fact that, like, the men and the lizard guy did not need blood. It felt like an excuse to like see the girls bloody, which maybe is a popular fetish now. I wouldn't know. This isn't my expertise. Fetishes are far outside my expertise. But I don't know. That's the best excuse I can get. Yeah, it just seems kind of weird that like there's no real plot reason that only priestess and elf girl would need be covered to like mask their scent, because all of them have scents. It just doesn't make any sense. It's just there so that we see the girls all bloodied up. It's God, this is not a good show. But they do actually set up a bit of intrigue for a few minutes this episode with the whole, like, who's leading the goblins mystery going on. Before we find out it's just, like, it's an ogre or an orc, I forget which. It's a non-goblin, which is what it's called in my notes. But yeah, it works for a little while. And then they stumble upon... So the dwarf guy realizes that the goblin horde is camped out on the left side of this passage. Like, there's, like, a crossroads. They head down the right side first, because this is an RPG, you should always check both pathways, and always go the pathway you know is wrong first. And also they find that there is a hung-up naked girl there, because of course she's naked, this is Goblin Slayer, and monsters do nothing but rape people in Goblin Slayer. Welcome to Goblin Slayer. And she initially makes sounds that she wants Goblin Slayer or the party in general to kill her. Before we find out that that she wants them to kill the goblin in the room, and Goblin Slayer's like, "Why do you think I would kill her? I only kill goblins," which doesn't make any sense because we already saw him and got a flashback of in this scene in the first episode. Mercy killing the sorcerer in Priestess's party. So the idea of like, oh, he only kills goblins and doesn't mercy kill people is bullshit because he mercy kills people. We've seen it happen. And now we need to talk about the elephant in the room. The elf. So at first, the elf throughout this whole scene is going through this whole like mental breakdown of, like, I guess she had never seen death before? She's 2,000 years old. Someone must have died in her lifespan. And so at first I thought they were setting her either up to die or to become a new Goblin Slayer, given how, like, later on when they put the goblins to sleep, she's just, like, stabbing one to death over and over again. But in the end, given that she doesn't do that in the end, she wants to take Goblin Slayer out on, like, a real adventure. More on that at the end of the video. It kind of feels like it's... I've read a review on something about the breaking of the tsundere. This kind of, like, power... Not... Kind of, like... Given how much the show is based in, like, sex and the sexualization of women... it feels like this whole, you know, almost sexual fantasy of, like, the cold girl, like, the haughty girl being, like, brought down a peg. And it's just, much like everything in the show is kind of, the whole thing's an And really that is all it has going for it, as I'll get to at the end of the video, because I've realized something huge while watching this episode, and I'll get to that in my, like, final roundup. But after that, we finally meet a non-goblin for Goblin Slayer to kill. He is, an ogre. He's an ogre or an orc. One of the two. Either way, he's not a goblin, is all that really matters. And, you know, he has this fight scene with the party. It's an ogre. I actually do in my notes in another bullet point, he's an ogre. He has a fight scene that goes on for, like, half the episode. And I don't really have a lot of notes about it, because it's just kind of plain. You know, the fight isn't spectacular, but it's also not abysmal. It's a necessary point of the episode, I guess, that they find who's controlling the goblins. But it's just kind of there as a fight. Except, of course, in one scene where the ogre is, like, taunting the party. And, of course, because this is Goblin Slayer, his taunts have to include threatening to rape the women, because that's all Goblin Slayer does. Goblin Slayer's claim to fame is a rape scene. Alright. But anyway, the fight ends with, he does this, like, gigantic fire attack on Goblin Slayer, and Goblin Slayer uses the scroll from last episode. It's revealed as some kind of gate magic that something warps the bottom of the sea to them, and somehow it cuts up the ogre, and, like, to paraphrase Always Sunny, which I've actually never seen, I really should, that doesn't sound right, but I don't know enough about water pressure to dispute it. Like, I mean, it's nice that we got some resolution with the scroll from last week, but, like... That's not... I don't think that's how this works. Really. I don't know. But anyway, that's the end of the Goblin Horde, and they all leave. And as they, like, leave... First off, for whatever reason, no one tells the elf, like, reinforcements that they've cleared out the cave. It seems, I get Goblin Slayer not caring. But, like... The rest of the party? Priestess would, like, tell them. Priestess is the kind of person who'd tell them. Unless... Oh, please tell me Priestess isn't becoming some kind of, like, cynical little Goblin Slayer-like asshole. Oh, I couldn't handle that. She's, like, the best thing in this show just because she's actually, like, a decent person. But yeah. After that, as they're leaving, the elf has a comment about how this isn't what an adventure is. An adventure is fun and free-spirited, and the show itself seems to kind of disagree with that, just by nature of existing. But I really agree with that. That's what an adventure should... It's why I love stuff like Fairy Tail, for all its problems. Fairy Tail is an adventure. It's a show that, like, makes you feel like going out and exploring the world, and, you know, dealing with the troubles along the way with your friends. That's a fun story. It's one that, like, is entertaining. This is just kind of... Well... Actually, it's time for me to get to that. That thing I mentioned I realized about the show. Is that... If you peel back the excessive violence, both sexual and violent, and like regular violence, this show is nothing. You know, it's the most boilerplate fantasy of all time, with the only like background setting is the demon lord is rising. The characters are all as one note as they come. This show has nothing going for it that is not over the top, like grisly violence and sexual assaults. This is a bad show. It's a dumb show. It's a ridiculously miserable, grisly, awful show. At first, before I kind of realized this moment, it was like, this is, I mean, it's not good, but like, it is. But like, it's bad. It's actively bad. It just, there's nothing really interesting about it. There's something, and I feel there's something inherently interesting in like reaching, we always talk about when playing like RPGs, oh, let's get to level 100 before the first boss. I played Kingdom Hearts all the fucking time as a kid, and I would always joke about getting to level 100 fighting, like, Riku and Tidus, Waka, and Selphie on Destiny Islands, and there's something kind of inherently amusing about that. But beyond that, as the show has to, like, make a 12-episode show and not a 5-minute short, the show's got nothing. It's got, again, the characters have at most one note to their personality. The plot is the most bland fantasy plot of all time. It's just if there's no threat of sexual violence or rape, there is nothing to this show. And having the threat of sexual violence or rape does not make you a good show. It honestly kind of brings the show down. There is nothing to recommend about this show. Maybe the animation isn't bad. I'll give it that. CGI Goblin Slayer is still kind of clunky, but besides that, it's just a bad show. The animation's alright, but the show it's just a bad show. Also, it's several shades of sexual male power fantasy, but that's a whole other thing that I might get into if I keep doing these reviews, which I will. I'm gonna find a way to tough out this show, find out if this show could make it to 12 episodes without having to accept the fact that it's just dull. This is, like, there's really nothing going for it. And y'all know, I like being positive about shows. It's my whole thing. Being positive is, again, why I made this channel. But you know what, for a show as miserable as this, it deserves it. This is not a good show. Like, I see anime trending, this is like #1 in the polls every week. I don't know how. I genuinely cannot wrap my mind around the fact that people see the blandest fantasy sprinkled with rape and are like, oh, this is the best show of the season? Fuck out of here. Fuck out of here. Alright. I hope y'all found some pleasure in this episode. It's not a lot going for it. And if you didn't, I hope you enjoyed the video, which I think is much better than this episode. And if you did, I hope you will like, subscribe, or do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, kick an ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!